right, so now we're joined by the SAFTU Secretary General Zwelinzima Vavi on this discussion. But Vavi, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So SAFTU describes this growth as stagnation rather than progress. How do you interpret the 0.5% growth in the broader context of the struggles faced by the working class in our country?
Well, 0.5% is a stagnation because that's what we have been into for the past 10 years or more, since after the disaster of 2008, followed by the coronavirus in 2021, 2021. We have not grown the economy. You need 5-6% GDP growth to begin to stabilize the crisis of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities in South Africa. 0.5%, which the president and his minister of finance are celebrating, is actually celebrating a non-event at all in the full context of what we have been going through since after the 2009. We have been here for ages now. We are stagnated. We are not growing at the levels that this economy needs in order to break the backbone of unemployment. Above all, we cannot be celebrating when that celebrating is totally detached from the realities facing families: poverty, hunger, unaffordable electricity, collapsing public services, records unemployment at 43% and above 50% for Black women. And this is something that will only be celebrated by those elites in their air-conditioned conference rooms, but not by ordinary people seeking a reprieve from the devastating impact of austerity program. And above all, Katlego, this is not growth. This is extraction, we argue. The main contributors for this growth is finance. Finance grows whilst jobs disappear. Mining expands with little beneficiation and brutal labor conditions. Trade depends on imports and consumer debt rather than rebuilding the industries. So even the 0.7% rise in the household spending reflects a working class borrowing just to survive, not rising wages or improved living standards. So we believe that the stolen economy cannot grow. We cannot grow without addressing the procurement corruption and tender fraud. We cannot grow when the public sector cartels are still involved in price fixing. We cannot grow when tax avoidance and profit shifting has still been nominalized in the country. We cannot grow when there's illicit financial outflows, transfer mispricing, and base erosion. Nor can we grow when there's inflation targeting and infrastructure that is not good enough to address the massive backlogs that we inherited, in particular in the Bantustan areas.
I mean, one of the issues that SAFTU wants to emphasize is the need for a developmental state and public ownership. How would these policies help in achieving sustainable growth and reducing inequality?
No doubt, an economy where only a tiny minority remain owners, shareholders, where the overwhelming majority remains sidelined and marginalized in the periphery of the economic activity, that is a sure way towards a stagnation. We've argued from time immemorial, inspired by the demands of the Freedom Charter, that says there must be growth through redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. Unlike today, where our monetary policies and fiscal policies guarantee a growth of the economy through redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich. We have to address the issue of ownership patterns in the economy. We have to address the issue of land ownership redistribution, and we have to address the issues of the living wage so that workers do not go to work by borrowing and only to be deep in crisis with debt crisis because their wages are far too low to be able to give them the buying power that will turn the wheels of the economy and begin to generate growth possibilities. So we're insisting on the implementation of the Freedom Charter demands that says the national wealth of our country, the heritage of South Africans shall be restored to the people as a whole. This is what unfortunately has been abandoned by the ANC in favor of privatization, austerity, neoliberalism, all of which have dismally failed the majority, the working class of our country.
I mean, you speak about the redistribution of land and of wealth. What then is your take on the role of international institutions and just that foreign investment within our country and balancing that act with regards to what's in the best interests of South Africans and South Africa rather as a country being a global player with regards to investment?
International flow of money into South Africa, therefore investment is absolutely critical for us to generate sustainable growth level in it. There is no economy that can only be driven by only the actions of the state. You need a correct combination and you need a correct balance between the two. But at the same time, you cannot, and we insist, you cannot allow the dictatorship of the policy space by these international institutions based on the Washington consensus, IMF, World Bank, and the rating agencies fit one-size-fits-all rules that are applied equally to Europe, a developed economy, and North America, as well as to the South with its massive economic development backlogs. You will be stupid, and I think the government continues to do this, to import all of these policies tailor-made for the USA, North America, western parts of Europe, which are economies that do not have the crisis of 43% unemployment or having 62% of their population trapped in degrading poverty, and all the type of inequalities that we have. You need a Marshall Plan for South Africa. You need an RDP and the full implementation of the economic demands of the Freedom Charter for you to begin to redress. There can be no redress when you just take on inflation targeting policies and you implement them here in South Africa, which can only mean that you make the price of money more expensive for people who need to participate in the economy, the macro and small medium enterprises, and the working class as a whole who need to borrow money in order to buy and to generate demand in the economy. And only that you can grow the economy to acceptable levels. The current structure, the growth path that government is embarking upon, guarantees us this 0.5% recession, 0.2%, and they want us to join them in celebrating, and they're anticipating that we will grow the economy by 1% next year. How could anybody with ambitions want to plan a long-term stagnation instead of embarking on a radical transformation program that will turn around the very structure of the South Africa's economy to be based on meeting the most basic needs of workers, the marginalized, unemployed, who are yearning for an opportunity to be active in the labor market of the country.
I mean, you speak of RDP in the sense that this really should be an economic policy that we are putting a lot of effort into. What impact do you think the economic policies such as GEAR and ASGISA that were implemented many years ago still have an impact on the working class today?
The results are there for everybody to see. And anybody who says that the impact has been positive needs to have his or her head read in a psychiatrist hospital. The disaster has been unfolding since the implementation of GEAR in 1996. Now we are battling with two twin neoliberal policies the government is implementing, something they call GAIN and something they call Operation Vulindlela, which is based on an ideology that says we're now moving away from a free market dogma that says the markets takes all of the risk for their investment decision and turn that around to say the markets now will make the risk and share those risks and impose them onto the shoulders of the state whilst they privatize their profits and alone without any involvement of anybody, whilst forcing the government to lower the rates of corporate tax, to do nothing about their massive looting of in the economy, price mispricing, all manner of tax dodging schemes that are involved in. These strategies, now we call it a GEAR 4, is going to lead us into one direction, an implosion eventually in South Africa. You can't keep over 12 million people in structural unemployment,
right,
where 80% of those have not been working for the past year. And you then say that you're celebrating a 0.5% of the GDP growth. This is a disaster unfolding in front of our own eyes.
All right, Mr. Vavi, thank you so much for your time and giving us reaction to the 0.5% growth, which SAFTU says is a retraction, certainly not progress. Thank you for giving us your time this evening. That was the SAFTU General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi.